What in the world is going on with the Pittsburgh Steelers offense? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Marcus Mosher and Kate Madjuk.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. This episode is brought to you by DoorDash. Okay, right before the show, I placed my own order on DoorDash to get some of my favorite local meals from Barista Roast. Absolutely outstanding coffee here in Corey, Pennsylvania. It should be here right before the show ends. So a big thank you to DoorDash for my lunch today. Place your order today using promo code LOCK23 and stay tuned later in the episode to hear more from our friends at DoorDash. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is a very somber Kate Madjuk. You can check her out on Twitter at Kate Madjuk. You can also check her out at Behind the Steel Curtain and Pro Football Focus. Kate, we got to start with your Pittsburgh Steelers, who, just completely laid an egg at home. Their offense was a disaster in this game, scoring 18 points. And honestly, it wasn't that close. I want to talk about the skill players here for the Steelers, not Mitchell Trubisky, but George Pickens, 5 for 19. Pat Freiermuth, 3 for 18. Diontae Johnson, 3 for 57. 25 of those came on the final play of the game, or the second to last play of the game. What should you be doing?
Diontae Johnson had a touchdown.
Yeah. What should you be doing with these Steelers assets in your dynasty league?
I think you've got to hold. Here's the thing, Marcus. We look at long-term value in dynasty. So I don't want to overreact, but obviously the answers at quarterback have been not good. I'm, different strokes, different folks between Pickett and Mitch Trubisky, but neither of them are good quarterbacks, right? I don't know if they have the answer at quarterback. You also look at the coaching staff. I don't know if they have the answer at coaching staff at this point. I think that you need to hold on because I can't imagine there being a lack of changes after the kind of implosion we are seeing. We kept saying it with Matt Canada, and finally, yes, we got the change at offensive coordinator. Well, we're finally seeing Mike Tomlin run out of people to blame. I have to imagine that there's going to be a big kaboom in this team. And I kind of think that's what they need. It feels like a lot of these players are complacent. It feels like there's too much here to be getting these results. So again, when I look at this from a long-term perspective, I look at the talent in the offense. Diontae Johnson, one of the best route runners in the league. George Pickens, a contested catch monster who I think throughout this season, prior to kind of skidding out in that 4-game awful streak, I thought George Pickens kind of looked like he was maturing a little bit into a more reliable guy on an every down basis. There's too much talent between these guys, Pat Freiermuth, to give up and sell low because the change has to be coming. And I have to imagine when the change comes, if the change comes, we're going to see the studs that we know that they are. Am I just a disillusioned Steelers fan?
No, I think there's going to be a change coming in Pittsburgh. There's just no way that Pittsburgh can bring back kind of a core trio of Diontae Johnson, George Pickens, and Pat Freiermuth next year and expect things to change. I think Pickens will be back because he's on a rookie deal. Pittsburgh still has 2 years left of control. Pat Freiermuth still has a year left on his deal. I expect him to get paid by the Steelers. Deontay's the one that I'm looking at. We could run through a lot of the stuff that's happened with Diontae this year, but it's pretty clear that he's frustrated. I won't be surprised if the Steelers try to trade him this offseason and maybe draft his replacement. But that makes me nervous, Kate, because a lot of Deontay's value in Pittsburgh has been based off volume. And I'm just not sure if he goes somewhere else, if he's going to get that consistent volume. So Diontae might be the guy that I would be willing to sell maybe low on right now, because I could see him getting traded to, name your team, Kansas City.
Kansas City.
Right.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, Kansas City. Hey, simpatico. But not seeing that same volume. Like, he's just not going to get double-digit targets in Kansas City because of the way Patrick Mahomes plays. Now, the
But
efficiency,
here's the thing, Marcus.
efficiency could go way up, but I
Yes,
just the
and
volume might not be there.
the efficiency can go way, way, way up. Like
Cam.
that, and especially if he's playing, with a quarterback of that caliber. I think Diontae Johnson would be a fantastic addition for the Kansas City Chiefs, playing with Rashee Rice. I think Diontae Johnson, he definitely needs a change of scenery. And if the Steelers don't automatically, on their own volition, look to trade him, I have to imagine he's going to request a trade himself. But I think that's kind of the trade-off that you're looking for with Diontae Johnson. Incredibly talented route runner. Hasn't always had the most reliable of hands, but has a pretty high ceiling, I think. And the good news is he can be a possession guy. So if that's what your offense needs, the Kansas City Chiefs, you have Travis Kelce, who has functioned as a possession receiver, essentially. Maybe Diontae Johnson is the new Travis Kelce.
No.
Okay. No. I'm just saying, but he's capable of having that volume. If you need him to be a possession guy, he's also capable of playing on the outside and making some big catches. So I think he's more versatile and would fit more schemes. But regardless, I think across the board, he's going to be getting more valuable targets if he finds the right fit. And those might be worth, 10 times more the 150 very low quality, inaccurate targets.
My problem with Diontae, it's just been a while since he's been that guy. The last time, and I know this is somewhat of a quarterback stat, but the last time that he's had 100 receiving yards in a game was on December 5th of 2021. It's been 2 full years now that we haven't seen him have a 100-yard game, and he's got the targets. He's in 2021 alone, he had 170 targets. So going into his age 28 season, I just wonder if we've seen the best of him. And if he happens to change scenery, I don't think somebody's going to rely on him to be their number one wide receiver. For me, I'm probably, of these guys, I'm probably the most likely to buy George Pickens, just because I do think getting Diontae out of there, changing the quarterbacks could potentially help him a little bit, but I'm not excited about any of these guys long-term.
Marcus, you might have convinced me to sell Diontae Johnson. I'm so unhappy.
Well, it's just it doesn't matter what the quarterback is. It seems like it's been exactly the same. This passing offense has been very stale now for 3 years now, whether it's been because of the quarterback, because of the offensive coordinator. I don't see Mike Tomlin being the type of coach that goes out and gets an innovative guy like Ben Johnson or Bobby Slowick to run the offense. It feels very much like if they hire an offensive coordinator this year, it's going to be Byron Leftwich or Frank Reich or somebody of that mold. And it just doesn't get me all that excited.
Yeah.
I love how depressed you are. This is, as somebody who absolutely hates the Steelers, this is absolutely fantastic. Kate, let's move on to something, as you say, less depressing, but the Patriots are pretty depressing on offense. I want to talk about Ezekiel Elliott and if he could be a potential league winner for you this season. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by DoorDash. Did the game go to timeout? Time to order in with DoorDash. Is it halftime? That's ordering in time. 2-minute warning. You got it. That is your cue to order in. Whenever the game clock stops, that is your time to order with DoorDash. Order pizza, wings, sodas, burgers, or even just buns on DoorDash and get it all delivered without missing the game. I got to say, my wife and I have become big DoorDashers. We got DoorDash last night ahead of the Steelers-Patriots game. She got a nice chicken sandwich. I got my boneless wings. I know people will make fun of me. I love boneless wings from our favorite spot at the corner bar and grill here in Corey, PA. Absolutely love it. Get 50% off up to a $10 value right now when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter promo code LOCK23, subject to change, terms apply. Again, that is 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter promo code LOCK23, subject to change, terms apply. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We want to let you know that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Everydayers, they know that on yesterday's show, we talked about some potential league winners. Ezekiel Elliott did not make the list. One of the guys that did was Mitchell Trubisky. And what did we say in that show, Kate? Like, hey, maybe just ignore what's going to happen on Thursday and look at the next couple of lineups. He did score 21 points last week. So if you started him as
that is crazy.
It's because of the rushing. 30 yards on the ground rushing. He had a touchdown as well. Threw for 190 yards and a touchdown, but schedule gets much easier. Want to talk about Ezekiel Elliott. 22 carries for 68 yards, 100% of the running back snaps in this game. No other running back got on the field. Also had 7 for 72 in the receiving game and a touchdown. Could Ezekiel Elliott, old man Ezekiel Elliott, be a league winner?
I think he might just be, which is so gross. I never thought I'd be saying this to close out the 2023 season, but fantasy football is it's a crazy game, man, and you got to keep up with it. What makes Ezekiel Elliott so special at this point? It is not the efficiency, right? Like just last night in the Steelers-Patriots game, Ezekiel Elliott surpassed his 2,000 career carry mark, which is absurd. This is not, he is not the pinnacle of efficiency at this point in his career. He has averaged 3.1 or fewer yards per carry in 7 games this season, including that game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, again, not looking for efficiency, but with the injury to Ramondre Stevenson, with the fact that this is the Patriots are not competing here, right? Like, I have to imagine Bill Belichick's a little frustrated after a win last night. You mentioned before we started recording, Marcus, that like all signs indicated between, who they were playing on the offensive line, the fact that Zeke was the only active running back. Like, this was a throwaway game for the Patriots. Like, and I have to imagine they're probably going to deploy the same kind of techniques here. They're tanking. They want a quarterback. They want a Drake May or a Caleb Williams. And I think they're going to keep rolling out Bailey Zappi because I think he's probably the better quarterback to get them to that place. And guess what? Bailey Zappi is targeting Ezekiel Elliott like crazy. Ezekiel Elliott, 72 receiving yards and a score, 7 receptions. And then just the week prior, just on Sunday against the Chargers, 4 for 40 through the air for Ezekiel Elliott. That is what's going to make him a league winner, period. And I don't think the Patriots are going to score a lot of points, but if you're in a full PPR format, I can very much envision, Ezekiel Elliott finishing as a top 15 running back rest of season.
50 touches in the last 4 days for Zeke. 50. I mean,
it's a lot for an old man.
It is. I don't see Ramondre.
I can barely get out of bed 4 days in a row, and Ezekiel Elliott's out here pounding the rock. You got to respect the man.
And I don't see Ramondre Stevenson coming back this year, and if he does, it's probably going to be like in week 18, right? Those high ankle sprains are so tricky.
Why should he come back?
Exactly.
Is the real question, given the state. Yeah.
Yes, and that's the point. I think Zeke is going to get a ton of touches the rest of the way. Now, you're not, as you mentioned, you cannot rely on the efficiency. However, I will say it's not all his fault. They put him in some rough situations in this game where, they're backed up in their own end zone. They're just running him just to try to get out of the own end zone. Late in the game, they were just trying to run out the clock, and he actually broke like a 12-yard run, almost sealed the game right there. So Maybe the efficiency gets a little bit better when teams aren't just teeing off against the run. But I mean, if you're going to tell me somebody's going to average 20 touches, upwards of 20 touches a game, and he was basically free in your dynasty leagues a couple of weeks ago, yeah, I could see a world in which Zeke just gets 125 touches over the next 3 weeks or the next 4 weeks, and he does win your league for you.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna shut out this podcast, Marcus, and I'm gonna be going to trade for Ezekiel Elliott, and it's not gonna feel good.
No,
You're not gonna want to watch Ezekiel Elliott play football, but I do think that, like, from a touch perspective, especially Marcus, you mentioned, I don't know that there is a running back that is going to how many running backs are going to touch the ball as much as Ezekiel Elliott probably will in the next month? I can't
McCaffrey.
think of many. Yeah.
I think it's going to be McCaffrey, Bijan, probably stops. I mean, maybe I don't even think Tony Pollard's going to get that many in Dallas. I think it's probably just
Mm-mm.
Bijan, McCaffrey.
And that's the beauty.
Yeah. So
Therein lies the beauty.
even if you're just getting it for RB2 production, you're just receiving the receiving numbers and the touchdown upside. I think Zeke could be a league winner. I just want to ask you on this New England stuff. Bailey Zappi played a really good first half in this game. Threw for, I think it was 100 or 240 yards and 3 touchdowns. Basically, New England stopped throwing the ball in the second half once they got a lead. Is Bailey Zappi somebody that you're interested at all? It's starting as a kind of low end QB2 the rest of the way.
No. We've seen the lows, right? I think Bailey Zappi's fine. Like if you need a literal body, but I don't think there's much upside. I think a lot of the upside that we saw in week 14 here was more to blame on the Steelers defense and some poor game planning than it is to say that this is the quarterback we're going to see moving forward.
It's just such a barren offense. I mean, Hunter Henry did catch 2 touchdowns and looked pretty good when they gave him
Juju
the ball.
Smith-Schuster had the best game of his season with the Patriots.
I mean, Juju, if you look at like Juju's game logs going into this one, Kate, I'll read them to you. Here's his last 4 games. 1 catch for 11 yards, 2 catches for 10 yards, 1 catch for 9 yards. Did have a 6 catch for 51-yard game against Washington, but then it was 1 catch for 3 yards, 3 catch for 6 yards, 1 catch for 14 yards, 1 catch for 5 yards. There's been nothing to suggest that this game was coming, except for it was against his former team. That's all.
Yeah.
This is a team that could go anywhere in the 2024 draft. If you told me they bypassed the quarterback and took Marvin Harrison Jr., I could kind of get behind it because you look at their wide receiver core right now. But yeah, not great for your long-term dynasty assets. Kate, let's get to our favorite part of the show. Enough talking about these two awful offenses.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's do some commotion, players that you should promote from your bench into your starting lineups in week 14. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. It is the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS because it's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, all you have to do is pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. PrizePicks is the most fun I've had playing DFS. There's so many different stats to choose from and so many different players to choose from. It's absolutely incredible. PrizePicks even offers a reboot policy that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits in the first half and does not return for the second, that player is rebooted. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. It's absolutely amazing. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. Everydayers, on Monday's show, Kate and I will be back breaking down all of the action from Week 14. It should be a fantastic slate of games we got Bills Chiefs in the afternoon, Cowboys Eagles on Sunday Night Football, a bunch of other big divisional games. We got some big wild card games like Colts Bengals, so make sure you guys tune in for that. But Kate, favorite segment of the week is Promotion Commotion. Who are you promoting from your bench into your starting lineup this week?
All right. Well, Marcus, this one, let's start off as gross as ever. I'm going with Kansas City Chiefs running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire, former first-round pick. Looking at the injury report for the Chiefs this week, you have, the Isaiah Pacheco dealing with a shoulder contusion. Jerick McKinnon been limited. He's missed the last 3 games with a groin injury. He's 31 years old. I don't know if we can expect him to play in this game, but even if Jerick McKinnon is in, as long as Isaiah Pacheco is out, I'm rolling with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. The Chiefs host the Bills this week, who are allowing a 15.8% explosive run rate. That is the second highest among NFL teams, giving up 4.5 yards per carry. That's the 5th highest average in the league. League high at 3.5 yards after contact per attempt. I do think that Clyde Edwards-Helaire will be the favorite for, some of that early down work. We know he's got some chops as a receiver. I think this could be a sneaky RB2 this week if Pacheco's out.
It's really funny that this is your promotion commotion, because you want to know who mine is?
Who?
It's Jerick McKinnon. McKinnon fully practiced this week after the groin injury. You mentioned he's going to play. It just seems like when we get into these big games, he is one of the guys that Patrick Mahomes really trusts, and he really trusts them when they get inside the red zone. I think Jerick McKinnon is a really nice flex play this week in a game that should be high scoring. At least you would think so. Buffalo has had major issues with their linebackers this year. Matt Milano obviously out for the year with a leg injury. Their safeties have been really banged up. I just won't be surprised if it's one of these games where Jerick McKinnon gets 6 carries for 18 yards, but it's 7 for 70 and 2 touchdowns as a receiver. I am perfectly fine starting Jerick McKinnon as a flex play this week.
All right. I think maybe we need to put like a friendly bet on the line. I don't know. Yeah. Okay.
I think here's what we need to do. The loser has to DoorDash coffee to the winner. I think that's what we need to do. What do you think?
That sounds like just the most delightful thing
Okay,
ever.
that's what we're doing. Clyde
There we
Edwards-Helaire.
go.
We do full PPR, right?
Full PPR. Let's do
All
it.
right, full PPR. That's the bet. All right, who else do you got this week?
All right. I do want to promote, and I'll keep it brief because we talked about him on yesterday's show as a potential league winner. Josh Dobbs, quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings, in the first game returning from, oh my gosh, Justin Jefferson's first game returning.
Yes.
We're going to see him, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson. They're just going to rain down fantasy points, I think, on this Raiders defense. He's got it with his legs. That has been a point of contention for the Raiders. Max Crosby might be shut down for the year, which is going to help their cause tremendously. I like Josh Dobbs this week, but in case you're wanting to hear more, go back and listen to yesterday's episode in case you missed it. Last but not least, I want to talk about Kylen Granson, tight end for the Indianapolis Colts, who he's been part of this kind of icky tight end by committee, but they get a matchup against the the Bengals in week 14, which has been just a delicious matchup for opposing tight ends.
I like it.
Kylen Granson leading that cohort in routes run. He ranks 4th in targets for the team. And this is a Cincinnati Bengals defense that has allowed 3 20+ fantasy points games over the last 5. They've allowed every tight end they face in the last 5 weeks to have at least 70 receiving yards. Go.
I like it. My last one is Alex Pierce, who actually had a huge game against the Titans last week, 3 for 100 and a touchdown. They play the Bengals. The Colts play the Bengals this week, who have allowed, I believe, the most explosive plays in the passing game this season. We saw the Jags throw all over the Bengals last week. The Bengals are now on a short week, playing on the road. It does feel like Gardner Minshew is starting to throw the ball down the field a little bit more. We've seen The targets go up for Alex Pierce, 6 targets in each of the last 2 games. I think against this Bengals defense, who is going to be without Cam Taylor-Britt, one of their starting outside corners, I think Pierce is worth a shot as a what-the-heck flex option if you are in need of a receiver. All he needs is one deep target to cash in order to give you value this week.
I love it. Let's do it.
All right. That is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen every single day. Again, every dayers. We will be back on Monday to break down all of the action from week 14. Go check out our show on YouTube. We post videos every single day over there. We are free and available on all platforms. Go check out Kate on Twitter at Kate Majuk. You can check out her work at Pro Football Focus and Behind the Steel Curtain, which is going to be a must read for like the next 10 days. Can't wait to dig into some of that. I am at Marcus_Mosher. Enjoy another week of fantastic football, and we will see you right back here on Monday.